We have seen that the public sphere, responsibilities, protection of rights, accountability can come to the fore as the word of the mind that built the 21st century. We took taqwa with the word fukur opposite. What was fukur? Fukur at any moment. Future also means to explode. A society at the point of explosion at any moment was, for example, a fukur society. A society governed by uncontrollable instincts is a fukur society.
Hello everyone from Istanbul School. Dear audience, this week our guest is Prof. Dr. Şaban Ali Düzgün. Welcome, teacher.
We are welcome.
How are you?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hoja, I want to talk about the word taqwa, a word you use often. You also use it as the piety of the heart. But these words that are used so often are often misused. Are we using the word taqwa correctly? What does it mean? How do you define it?
I think it's a good introduction. There is always a risk of either a loss of meaning or an expansion of meaning in words that are used very publicly. The word may not give exactly what it wants to give. Sometimes we put such things in the word that the word does not have the capacity to absorb it. So I wanted the topic of our conversation to be taqwa, but there is a further step. The Quran defines taqwa both as the taqwa of the heart, or actually the full word is taqwa al-gulub, the piety of the heart. And in another place it talks about libasu taqwa, the garment of taqwa. So taqwa is not only used by itself, but it is also used as a scale that defines a pious person and measures his quality. He is talking about the pious. So I wanted to explore a field of meaning of the word taqwa. Which words can be synonyms of taqwa? What is its opposite? When we put the opposite, the meaning of the word becomes more crystallizes. When we look at it like this, the word taqwa, once the common use of the word taqwa, the part of the word that we say is erroneous. We need to touch it first. Fear of God. When we analyze the word, there is the word fear, right? But at the same time, the root meaning waka, protection. So the first meaning is protection. If we warn a child not to go out after, let's say, 7 or 8 in the evening, and they tend to ignore that warning, then in a slightly scary language, there may be people out there who can harm you. We talk about risks. We tend to scare. The reason is that the root of taqwa is wikaya, which we call waka, so protection. Our main purpose is protection, to provide this protection. The language of intimidation is sometimes preferable, but not always. So we adjust that risk accordingly. So the root meaning of the word taqwa is protection. Why do we protect ourselves? There is a very famous narration. Hazrat Umar asks Ubay bin Ka'b, he says, what is this word taqwa? He says, have you never walked in a field of thorns? He says, don't let the thorns prick your trousers. He says, didn't you pull up your trousers? He says, I did. This is what taqwa is, he says. If you don't want something in life to stain you, just as you pull up your trousers against thorns, this is my interpretation of life. The dirt, rust, stain that life can infect you. Sometimes it can infect your mind. Sometimes it can infect your emotional world, your heart. It is a way of protecting yourself. So let's correct this first meaning. So it is not fear. The main meaning is protection. I try to show this protection by quoting Imam Maturidi very often to show that the meaning he attributes to the word taqwa is much more functional today. He says that a ruler should act in such a way in the decisions he makes against the people he is in charge of, that he should make such savings, knowing that he will be held accountable at the end of all this, and that he should act by coding his emotion, consciousness, and thought into his mind. That is, he says that taqwa is the name of accountability. Now we have come across two other meanings of taqwa. One was protection, the second was accountability. Now why accountability? Because this protection and fear can come into play here. So when a person, our accountant, is doing all the financial accounts, at the end of the year, he knows that the auditor will audit him, so he keeps this anxiety in his mind all the time, and he doesn't try to cheat. Since he does not resort to any tricks, when the time comes for the account, he gives his account in an understandable way and the book is closed. Therefore, in the process, if a person who uses authority and power, as Maturidi says, acts with a consciousness and awareness that takes into account the right and law of the people to whom this power is directed, this is called taqwa. Now, we don't need to allocate the Quranic terms of taqwa in such a way that, for example, only those who rule should act in a way that they can be held accountable for their decisions. This is true. But there is no need for allocation. At the end of the day, every human being has an area that he or she manages, small area, micro, or much bigger. So the people who manage a family, the parents also have taqwa. If they treat each one of these responsibilities towards their children with equal care, that is also called taqwa. Why? Because if you discriminate, there are hadiths. If you discriminate, you will be asked for it.
What is needed is not equality but justice.
Justice is needed. Justice, fairness. Among these people, among our children, the one who deserves more is working day and night. You understand that this deserves more investment. Then fairness will work. That is not equality. The parents themselves will weigh him on a scale, put him on a balance, but in the end the word taqwa is directed towards protecting us, protecting our rights, protecting our law, protecting our dignity, both in terms of the process, that is managing the process and managing the result we aim for, the result we will achieve. Secondly, we see that it is directed towards protecting the rights and laws of the people we are in contact with and related to. So now we need to look at the opposite of such Quranic terms in order to discover their full meaning. The opposite word of taqwa seems to be fukr. Because it refers to the nature of man, I remember the verse. In other words, in all the structures of existence, not only in the structure of human existence, but in the structure of everything that exists, there is both faqr and taqwa. So the being that has the possibility to protect something also has the possibility to degenerate it. A being that has the possibility of doing something also has the possibility of destroying it. So if you look at history, social history or political history, you will see that there are times when the constructive elements of the past have turned into destructive elements. So taqwa is actually not only for humans. The nature of existence is self-protection. All beings are like that. It is later that these things are expressed, that they are later told to us as taqwa, that they are expressed. Language is later. Every being protects itself and wants to continue existing in the best conditions. What does this remind us of? Spinoza's concept of conatus. Not only human beings, but all elements of existence. I mean, even that grain of sand over there. It is tuned to keep itself in the best condition, to keep existing and to continue existing. I conceptualize it as taqwa when it is kept within itself and karem when it overflows outwards. Imagine a human being when he gives out what he has in his pocket, he is karim. Wa karemna beni adem. We have made humankind respectable. Lada has the same meaning. It comes from the same root. Because your dignity is not just because you exist. Existence is a dignity, okay? This is in the pocket one. Secondly, dignity comes from the quality of your communication with other people. Therefore, a very stingy man is not a very respectable man. A very respectful man is not a respectable man at all. Why is that? Because in the Holy Quran, stingy people are mentioned among the groups of people that Allah dislikes. Imagine this stinginess is also the height of selfishness. In other words, we are talking about the type of person who puts himself at the center of life, who always wants to rise by stepping on the backs of others, who makes the existence of others his capital. Stingy, as I said, is also an expression that has lost its meaning. When you think about the relationship between a man's existence and other beings, this is a man who is ready and willing to constantly exploit and use the existence of others. In other words, he is a parasite of society. Why did we use such harsh sentences about the miser? Because since he is classified among the groups of people that Allah dislikes, there is a problem here. Because being disliked is a sin that Allah dislikes. The issue is not only that the person himself is stingy. Sin is about violating the rights and laws of other people. Otherwise, it is not possible for a person to sin at home on his own. There is more crime in what you call sin. There is violation of rights. There is ignoring the rights of others. So now the word taqwa, as you can see, if you focus on the word taqwa, it also protects other words and their honor. Therefore, the accountability that Maturidi identified there is the degeneration in our world today, in our world of law, and I don't just mean Turkey. Unfortunately, there are problems in our law, in our judicial system. In other words, we have problems in our understanding and implementation of justice. But if you look at the world, there is an organization called the United Nations. This is the institution that will distribute justice at the very beginning. You are expecting justice from an institution that, at the very beginning, cripples the idea of equality from the very beginning because there are 5 countries with veto rights. It is already clear that this will not happen. It has been obvious for years. Therefore, what was the issue? Accountability, protection, protecting people's rights and law. The word taqwa is a word that I have started to use slowly recently. It is a term called biopower, biopolitics. What we mean is this, that is the bio in which human bodies, human beings are somehow materialized in politics, through which powers are secured. There is a concept we call power, biopolitics. Now, what was our world? What was our main issue when we were talking about taqwa and fajr? This word wants to ensure the establishment of an accountability system that ensures the protection of people's rights and laws. And it wants us to institutionalize this. There is a movement, a tendency, a philosophy called post-metaphysics that uses such terms. That is, you fill and fill and fill such words as metaphysical words. They take off like balloons. And then you see that they are magnificent. It's marvelous. When you look to see if they have any correspondence in your real world, in the world you live in, you see that they have no correspondence. This includes justice. This includes fairness. That's why post-metaphysics says, bring the words that you have filled with these ideals down to earth in the public sphere with a moral content, to reposition them on the habermas that all men have agreed upon, on which all men have agreed. Yes, this is the word, touches our lives in a meaningful way. So, this word and the institutions that it wants to create, yes, religious and irreligious can say that. So the word taqwa, if it is based on accountability, a just world, a just society, I'm not saying society already exists, the world already exists. That is not the point. It is clear that this world is not a sustainable world in its current state. Therefore, today we are talking about a more just world. So the religious and the irreligious, I don't classify them as religious and irreligious, but in Piketty's book, In other words, when we talk about a social order after Marx, economists today think that the established order is not a fair order, that the working people are like machines working like robots, like slaves, without fully obtaining their rights and laws, and therefore there is no sustainable order at the moment. Economists also say that if you don't want explosions, social explosions, you need to ensure fairer taxation, fairer wages. Look, we are talking about the institutionalized form of this word piety.
So social taqwa is more important.
Of course, now when I was talking to my late teacher Hussein Atay, he said, look, our culture makes a distinction between fardai ayin and fardai kifa. And fardai ayin, that is acts of worship that eliminate one's own responsibility. For example, your prayer is fardi ayin, you have to perform it yourself. Fardi kifa is an issue that concerns society. Someone does it and that responsibility falls off your shoulders. However, says Juwaini, this is an important name in Shafi'i jurisprudence, an important name in theology. Juwaini is also the teacher of Ghazali. Juwaini says that fard is the same and fard-i kifaya is primary in the classification. Because if you do not do a matter that concerns society, no one will do it, and something that needs to be done will not be done. He says that the matter that concerns society is a Bible. He says fard-i kifaya is more important. Look, he reverses a perception. Now, the word piety that we mentioned protects you first. Okay, your rights protect your law. But if other people's rights are lost, where your rights are protected, there is no fair society. In other words, when you go out into society, you can get into trouble at any moment. What I am saying is that Turkey's religious groups, different beliefs, Alevis, Sunnis, Zaydis, Kafiris, people's beliefs, what they believe, how they behave, places of worship, are in the area of their own personal responsibilities and decisions, no matter how they define it. What concerns us? When we go out in public, no segment of society will be harmed by the other segment. None of them will be able to go out and walk around in public areas 24 hours a day without any worries or concerns. In other words, I taught in America. In Alabama, they say after 7 o'clock, my friends from university warned me, if you are going out after 7 o'clock, my teacher said, only go out in your car. Someone will hit you in the head with a stick and take your bag or wallet and leave. This is a place like that. Crime by states. Statistics are kept, and it is a place with the 6th highest crime rate. Now, what these people believe in the public sphere, what they do normally did not concern me. But we all go out into the public sphere, and these people are on a moral ground. On a moral ground, the religious ground belongs to them. What they believe in is up to them. But when you bring religious terms into the social sphere with moral content, as Habermas says, and by agreeing on it, religions also become functional in the public sphere. We have come from one place to another. We have seen how the word taqwa, understood as fearing God, can actually come to the forefront as the word of the mind that built the 21st century, such as society, public sphere, responsibilities, protection of rights, accountability. Taqwa was taken by the word fukur with its opposite. What was fukur? Fukur means to explode at any moment at the same time. A society that is on the point of explosion at any moment, for example, is a fukur society. A society governed by uncontrollable instincts is a future society. Crime, sin explodes from everywhere and comes upon you. Can you imagine that? I mean, I really shivered when I thought about it. The sins that caused the destruction of ancient nations, all of them are currently in our cities. In other words, they are all collected. Think about it. So what have we become now? It is as if we have turned into a society of prostitution. Rights, law, loss. In other words, you make an agreement. At that moment, the articles of the agreement, that you, an institution or a person, will go bankrupt, that you will be subject to enforcement proceedings, that is, that your rights and law will be lost, are written there in ant letters. Now, can you imagine something like this? I mean, we are talking about a just society, but how much of a society is there where there is a commercial immorality that makes the other party's rights difficult? How can we usurp them by making them difficult, even in the contract we make? How can you talk about a society of piety? What I mean is, whether it is our national identities or religious identities that look magnificent up there with these patriotic stuffed balloons that have taken off, these do not satisfy our hunger. They need to keep their feet on the ground, and all the people who breathe here should benefit from this peace, this well-being, this peace. Therefore, piety must find a new function with a content that protects all of these and removes immorality from society.
So, sir, how should we distinguish between piety and piety of the heart? What is piety of the heart?
The Holy Quran gives us the piety of the heart as an advanced stage of piety. And in another verse, he calls Allah's poet, Vemen Yuazim Shair Allah. And this is Allah's, I will explain it a little bit. He says, whoever glorifies Allah's Shair, this is the taqwa of the heart. That glorification is mentioned elsewhere as hurumat. These are the hurumat of Allah, whoever glorifies them. Now, two words. There is a direct relationship between the word Shair and the piety of the heart and hurumat. The word hurumat comes from the same root as haram, from the same root as reverence, from the same root as iram. In fact, both not approaching the haram, and to keep those who should be respected within the framework of respect. For example, what is that? Iram. Haram and Iram come from the same root, which means something. I mean, a man who enters Iram, let's say he is angry, his mouth is broken, he will say something that he can do very easily here. You cannot say it there. From the moment you enter Iram, your human boundaries will expand considerably. You can't just say whatever you want. You see, dignity, what you say is haram, brother. For example, touching a person's blood is haram. It is forbidden to insult a person. This also protects his dignity. So what you call haram is the door to protecting dignity. The Holy Quran forbids it. It says not to gamble. It is haram. Actually, what he wants to protect is the dignity of the person, because there is more than one. So what is gambling? It is a point where the greed to make money takes you captive and drags you. You don't know where you will go. You can no longer use your human faculties. Why does he forbid you to gamble now? Not only because you will lose money, not only because you will take money from someone else's hands, it's also because you lose your human faculties, you lose your dignity, you drift. The same goes for the prohibition of alcohol. So now the statement is this: whoever glorifies the hurumat of Allah, whoever puts them at the center of life as a priority, or the Shair Allah, if he glorifies these, this is taqwa of the heart. We all use the word sur in Turkish, sur. So you may ask, what is Shair? Signs, that is, the signs of Allah for a human being, the signs of Allah on earth today. For example, this is related to vitality. Vitality. In Arabic, Shair, consciousness, poetry come from the same root. From whom does poetry come? The poet. So what is the characteristic of a poet? The poet's spirit world is alive. His heart world is alive. All his faculties, all his frequencies are open and alive to receive inspiration. A living heart can only sing poetry. Consciousness can only be the consciousness of a person who is alive. Shagir, hair, only a living person can grow hair. Therefore, it shows that Allah is a living, active, effective power on earth, and that the people to whom he addresses him desire to establish an active, living, conscious world. In other words, there is consciousness at the root of Shair. There is awareness, there is vitality, there is dynamism, there is dialectics, there is fluidity, and the world of a person in contact with Allah is such a world. There is no passivity, no amorphousness, no impersonality, no formlessness, always being ahead. Allah, who created such a person, says, if you elevate this, this is the taqwa of the heart. So the heart, you thought, the heart, we are always going like this, mind, consciousness. So if our consciousness is open, we are human beings. If we have no consciousness, if we have no soul, we are dead. But for this consciousness to exist, the heart has to send it, it has to pump it biologically, right? The Holy Quran puts the heart in a metaphorical language, both in a biological sense and in this biological structure of ours. It does not give taqwa to the mind, it gives it to the heart, because the heart will nourish it. Sometimes people ask the Holy Quran about the connection between these two, as if religion and piety require emphasizing the heart. It doesn't. There is something that the philosophy of mind teaches, cognitiveness, what we call cognition today. It's relevant here. The fact that biologically the heart feeds it does not mean that the heart comes first. What we call heart actions, whatever is related to the heart, they also come out of a conscious person. They come from a conscious person. Therefore, this question of consciousness or heart, mind or heart is a very bad legacy that Greek philosophy has handed down to us. It shows the fallacy of the idea of analyzing and atomizing by dividing and separating. The connection between these two is unbreakable. The Holy Quran mentions this connection. Look at Surah Kehf. When they talk about Ashabi Kehf, when they praise them, that knowledge, certainty, guidance is connected to the heart. What is in the mind is connected to the heart, therefore the connection is kept as an unbreakable chain. Now, what I call the piety of the heart has a content that reminds us of that piety as a dynamism and the engine of life. It is to elevate what it calls piety to a higher level. Also, the expression libasu piety, the Qurani Karim piety dress. Why is a dress worn as a dress? Sometimes we say this in our monthly trials. Some people say they are very careful not to show their areas exposed by the wind, but you can think about it. When we do a risk analysis of what life brings us, what it can bring, we take this into consideration. And I'm not talking about a piety dress, piety dress. If you want to continue your life with piety in such a way, with confidence and satisfaction, wear that piety dress, the garment of piety. What would that dress bring? It will both protect yourself and the rights of all the people connected to us. This garment is piety.
Well, thank you very much for your valuable players. It was a very nice definition. Taqwa, the taqwa of the heart.
Takva blinked.
The garment of piety, yes.
This has been a nice conversation. Thank you too.
We have calculated it all in a young framework. Thank you very much. Dear audience, this week our guest was Prof. Dr. Şaban Ali Düzgün. We talked to him about taqwa, taqwa of the heart and the dress of taqwa. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.